Hi, everybody. I am joined this morning by Iris Bahr. Nice to meet you, and thank you for reaching out to speak with me.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you.
So Iris, you are a writer, an actor, director. You wear many hats.
Yeah.
But we're speaking today about a show that's coming to the Toronto Fringe Festival here in Canada. But let's just rewind a bit and tell us a little bit about your career trajectory in terms of getting you to do this one person show
Yeah,
or different shows.
absolutely. So I've been doing one-person shows for a long time. I'm no spring chicken. I started off in college studying neuropsychology. So I was doing neuroscience, which was a whole other world, but not for my personality. Um, and then once I moved, I started doing, after acting school, stand up and things. But I very quickly realized that I wanted to write my own work and actually
Mm,
go deeper. And I love playing characters, and I wanted to play characters that I could not be cast as, so I would
right.
play, men in their 50s and Hasidic Jews and, this whole kind of world of people. And so I wrote a lot of fictional one-person shows. One of them was very successful, and I did a show at the United Nations and all this stuff. But the last couple of years, over the last 3 years, a lot of big events have happened in my life. Usually trauma feeds comedy. So it's not, you don't write a show about having a great boyfriend, you know what I mean? That usually doesn't happen. And so I decided to kind of write more open, vulnerable, true stories, kind of
Right.
confessional, storytelling. And so I've had two shows that I'm touring with. One is See You Tomorrow, which I can talk about in a minute, which I'm bringing to Toronto. And the other one I just premiered in Montreal called Stories from the Brink, My Festive Near-Death Adventures, that I took to Montreal, and that was great. And I won a Frankie Award, which was awesome. So there's some overlap in some of the world because I deal with my mom and kind of some near death stuff. But this show is See You Tomorrow is more of a like a long form one story that takes us through.
I
Uh,
see. Would you say that over time you also kind of change how you write or your approach to writing these sort of stories?
yeah, I think so. I think that it also depends on the venue, because I also do stand up regularly, and sometimes I'll tell stories there. So even the same story can be told very different ways. When I'm on a big stage, in front of a large audience and it's a theater piece, it's obviously like very polished and scripted, and there's light cues, and it's kind of a tight,
Right.
it's a play, really, but when I'm telling the story in a club and I just, and it can be the same story, then I can break and I improvise and it's a looser feel. And I love both, I love
Right.
the theatricality. But regardless, I always end up just being very kind of truthful and vulnerable. And it beats, it beats the crap out of you doing these shows
Yeah,
a lot.
I can only imagine as I say this because or maybe I can't even imagine because I am not a performer, but I always encourage folks to experience these shows because it is about that vulnerability that is addressed in so many ways. You can laugh, you can cry,
Yeah.
and you're in this dark room with other folks experiencing it at the same time, you know?
Yeah. I think that that's why I do even shows that are hard for me, like See You Tomorrow. There's a lot of humor because that's how I deal with
Mhm.
challenging situations. And it's about caregiving for my mom and this whole journey of relocating to take care of her and kind of upending my life in middle age and dealing with culture shock and a lot of other stuff. But you have to find the humor in it, but it resonates with a lot of people, especially this like sandwich generation where you have a young kid and an aging parent. And so no matter how hard the show is for me emotionally, people come to me after, and anytime I can alleviate or bring joy to people going through challenging things or feel like they're being seen, that to me is I'm doing my work. I feel like that's really the point of art, to kind of find the universal in the human condition and how I cope with it specifically and how that, opens perspectives up for people, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think it's just another way to talk about this stuff too. That
100%.
sometimes can be a little difficult for some folks. So, See You Tomorrow, as you already mentioned, is it's around your relationship with your mother and having to kind of change your life. How long was that process for you to obviously lived experience and then deciding that you wanted to sort of process it through writing and acting?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because, and I don't want to give away from the show too much, but this happened kind of abruptly and dramatically and happened on video,
Mm,
which crazy. So I was 6,000 miles away trying to navigate this event and then ended up relocating. And it was extremely challenging emotionally. I feel like I was drowning. And
Mm-hmm.
that happened in February, and I was scheduled in November to go host a festival in Vancouver. And I usually do comedy and I do characters, and I was planning on doing stand up. And then I said to the artistic director, I said, you know what? I think I'm going to write about what I'm going through right now.
Right.
Also because I suddenly realized how many other people are going through, you know what I mean? It suddenly opened my eyes.
Sure.
And so I wrote, and it was very hard because I'm still living it. Even now, I'm still living it. I talk to my mom, a couple of times a day. And so it's like very meta. I talk
Mm.
about it and I'm talking about it and performing. And then I tell her that I'm talking about it, but she has no recollection. Like it's this whole thing.
Sure.
And so I ended up doing it in Vancouver, and then it's evolved. I've shifted it, I've changed it because things, evolve and change.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I did it in DC in November, like a 2-week run. And it's so interesting because every audience is different. Like there's a lot of humor in the show, and sometimes the audience laughs from the first minute, they're with you. They're on this train and they're laughing and crying. And other times they're very earnest and the
Mm.
energy is heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God, this is so, I can't, what? Can we not? I mean, it's
Yeah,
okay to laugh seriously because it's like people handle things, different. Like people, it shifts, it changes.
absolutely.
It was so interesting. And even with this other show, it's Stories from the Brink, there was only one night where it was like a quiet artist, but they were listening, they were with you. But,
Yes.
people have the capacity to ride the roller coaster with you, and other people are like, oh, this is okay. I'm just going to, you know what I mean? It's a different energy.
Mhm.
It's always interesting for me to experience that.
I would imagine it's really interesting for you, because I have this discussion with friends all the time when I go to live performances where we're like, are we the only ones laughing or are we the only ones asking, because it's like, it's okay. Like we want everybody to feel
Yes.
you have
Yeah,
to.
it's okay. And I think that sometimes it's important to say it's okay to laugh, like give people the license to do that, especially when you're talking about and I teach solo performance, and I
Right.
develop projects with clients. I have a lot of artists that I work with. And I say to them, the most important thing with a one-person show is that it doesn't feel like therapy.
Yeah.
Like the audience has to know that you're okay.
Mm,
Because if it's such an emotional event and they feel like they're not okay, the energy shifts and then the
mhm.
audience feels uncomfortable. They have to like take care of you, or it feels really sad. And you have to, like any movie you see, like, as opposed to a documentary, like if you're watching a movie and the character's breaking down, you can still feel something, but you know that they're okay.
Okay.
I feel
Hmm.
like that's the journey of a one-person show, and hence the ability to laugh too, because I'm laughing. It's not like you're laughing at me. You're laughing. I hope you don't laugh
Right.
at me. You're laughing with me, right? So it's different.
I'm glad you said that because I don't think I've heard someone say that before, where it's like, we need to sort of learn the cues from the person on stage that, yes, it's a very autobiographical piece, but they're clearly doing it for a reason and they're okay doing it, right?
Yeah.
It come
Yeah.
back
And
with more
sometimes
than
they're not okay. I have artists that I'm working with now that are going through very intense things. And I say
Mhm.
you also got to take care of yourself. If the creative process is helping you, do it. But if you need to take a step away, then take a step away. So it's because you don't want that to be that. You don't want to emotionally vomit. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to emotionally vomit on the audience and they're like, okay, why did we pay for this? Like, what are we doing here? Because it still has to be entertaining. It has to be entertainment. Yeah, be torture.
I know, I kind of feel that, and but I mean, it can be okay. It can be entertaining and emotionally moving at the same time, right? Like,
Yes, exactly.
um,
100%.
so thank you for sharing that. I find that really illuminating. I could talk to you about your course another time, I'm sure.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
I wanted to ask you what it's like to perform in festivals like the Montreal Fringe and the Toronto Fringe, and what you love about those festivals, because there's a reason you want to bring the show to us.
Yeah, well, I got to be honest, like this is my first Canada Fringe circuit. I did the Edinburgh Fringe many years ago,
Mhm.
many years ago. And I loved it. And I feel like, now I'm different. I have a kid. My life has been, I travel for work, but I don't tour a lot anymore because I just want to, my life has shifted.
Yes.
And suddenly when these opportunities, because friends told me about the fringes, I didn't know to what an extent. There's the Edmonton, the Winnipeg, like it's a
Yes.
scene. I was excited because I love the idea, A, of presenting, but also being in a festival, like an artists and creation, and some things are in progress and some things are polished, and there's different ages, and so Montreal was fantastic. And I went to see all these shows, and it's such a joy. And there are these people that, like, that's their life, just
Right.
touring these fringe circuits. And that's a whole species, you know what I mean? Like, that's a group, man. So you get to know that group. It's fun.
Right.
It's great.
Yeah, so I think it's also one way to experience as an artist. You know, you get to do your work and get to meet other artists and how they're touring their shows, and also for audiences because then you can immerse yourself in like one day, or as
Yeah.
friends. And I always say friends because there's people that I love going to the theater with, and we're like, let's just pick one theater on a Sunday and we'll
Well,
stay there.
that's brilliant. Yeah. I mean, every time I did it, my show in Montreal, I did in a very large chapel, which
Mm.
was an interesting venue. I had Jesus watching over me,
Oh dear.
uh, really on the cross, and there was everywhere. So I kind of utilized that in the show as much as I could.
Mhm.
And so I would go see other shows in that venue too, also because artistically it's interesting to see other people,
Mhm.
utilize the space and stuff. It was tough because there was an echo, and
Oh,
with humor and timing, I'd make a joke, 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 joke. You know what I mean? And it would hit the audience, and I'm like, but we managed it. I loved it. Yeah, Montreal Fringe was great. I'm very excited about Toronto. Very, very excited.
yeah, I'm excited to have you come and see what that's like for you too. So for anyone who's interested in See You Tomorrow that's coming here, you already kind of said what it's about. What is it that you want people to take away from it? What is it that you want to share with us and kind of give us permission to experience?
Yeah. Well, first off, I think that, a lot of people know me because I had a recurring role on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Mm.
I play this Orthodox Jewish girl. So it's always nice when people don't know my theater work and they come see me in a different capacity, which I
Yeah.
I love. So there's sharing different sides of my art. Um, but I think it's about, you know, illuminating parental relationships and the feeling of guilt and shame that carries us around. It's also a cultural thing. I know it differs in various cultures, but like, what is that relationship, and how do you, as you get older, how do you manage that? And the idea of like obligation versus sacrifice, and you know, um, it's time to pay back for all the, like all these themes. But I would hope that people see a different window into something that may scare them or frighten them, or the idea of also of mortality and loss, but also how to find the humor in everything, and no matter
Mhm.
how dark the situation, as a survival mechanism, is the joy also of these different phases of life and acceptance. And again, there's a lot of funny stuff in the show. It's like, it's not, who wants to watch, I don't think anybody really wants to watch something sad for 90 minutes, like, unless you got issues. But I feel like we're all going in also for a good laugh. It's been a challenging few years for everybody, so I feel like
Yes,
um it's also a break, I guess. Come in
sure.
for 55 minutes of fun.
No, that's excellent. Have you done this show anywhere else? And what's been the feedback?
Yeah, I did it in New York, and I did it in Vancouver, and I did it in DC. So
Mhm.
this will be my Toronto premiere. And like I said, I'm adding stuff. So the show that I'm doing now is different than the show other people saw.
Mhm.
Um, and the feedback has been, like I said, great. Like, people always come to me after, and everyone has their stories to share. And people say, thank you, I needed a laugh,
Right.
also.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, and people sometimes ask me for advice. You become like an authority on caregiving. Um, because I also
Mhm.
laugh at my mom in a good way, because my mom used to laugh at herself.
Sure.
And one woman was like, "Do you not feel guilty laughing at your mom?" I go, "No, it's not. It's coming from love. It's not, and as
Right.
a comedian, I laugh at myself all the time. You have to laugh at situations, because
Mhm.
again, it's not like you don't feel the pain of them. It's because you feel the pain in them that, that you need, and the power of laughter to come out of that."
Right. And it kind of takes us back to the same point of like um allowing yourself to laugh at things, which I
Yes.
sometimes people still need reassurance even after the show, right?
Yeah,
Because like,
100%.
oh, okay, I
100%.
can. this is okay, that I'm.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that people know how to find you, how to follow you in real time. Iris,
Yes.
what are your
Yes.
hands?
So I am on Instagram at iris.bahr. It's
Mhm.
spelled Iris, but it's pronounced Iris. On Facebook, you can just search me. I think there's a fan page. And my website, irisbahr.com. There's links to obviously the ticket link in Toronto. So everybody come see the show and we can chat afterwards.
Absolutely. And also look out for, your educational stuff. I found it really informative. So,
Oh, wonderful.
you
Thank
know,
you. Yeah, please. I teach classes all the time. I teach privately. I do public speaking coaching, all this stuff, creative coaching. So anybody's working on movies, scripts, like I kind of shepherd people along, hold them accountable, make sure they're on point, make sure. So it's a really great journey for me
that's
and the artist.
for sure. And what's next for you after Toronto Fringe?
I don't know. I have a couple of feature films that I'm developing. I'm waiting to hear if this show that I'm on Amazon is getting picked up for a second season. We don't know yet.
Nice.
That's called Dinner with the Parents. That was super fun. Yeah. So
Mhm.
and probably write something new.
Excellent. So we'll look up for updates then.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Iris. Great
So
speaking
much,
with
Heidi.
you.
Thank